Howdy! Today we'll be diving into the concept of discontinuance of innovations. But before we get started, let me introduce myself. I'm Makayla Waiser, and I'm a current graduate student in the Department of Agricultural Leadership Education and Communications, and I'm pursuing a master's to hopefully become an extension agent and work with the youth program 4-H. So, starting off today, I hope that y'all are able to have an understanding of what discontinuance is in relation to innovation and how this affects the adoption rate, as well as have a better understanding of practices that can be used to mitigate discontinuance from occurring, as well as we will be analyzing case studies to explore the importance of discontinuance to agricultural. Okay, so if everyone would take a moment to pull out your phones or laptops and go to minty.com, and you will put in that 8-number digit code into it, and there should be a text box that pops up, and then please take a moment to write the first words or phrases that come to mind when you think of discontinuance. So feel free to put as many as you would like. I'm going to go ahead and switch over, but the code will still be at the top of the code, so you will have time to add in. Oh my goodness, a lot of y'all have already been able to put y'all's words in. So we have some really awesome ones that I'm looking at: innovation, pivoting, disenchantment, lack of resources, implementing, decision, positive, outdated, rejection, disapproval, recall, progress. So we've got a mix of some positive and negative words, which we will come to discuss a little bit later into this presentation. So, what exactly is discontinuance? According to Rogers, it is the decision to reject an innovation after having previously adopted it. Another definition for it is abandoning an innovation relatively quickly after adoption to use another competing innovation. So basically, this is when an adopter adopts an innovation, they use it for a little while, and due to a multitude of reasons, they discontinue the use of that innovation. So, to fully understand discontinuance, it's important to understand where it happens within the innovation decision process. So, Rogers has created a model of the 5 stages of this process, and it first starts with knowledge. Knowledge is where the adopter learns about this potential innovation that they could use. They then go into persuasion, where they look in and they are either persuaded to make a decision about this innovation. Finally, obviously, it comes to that decision where they can either adopt or reject this innovation. Well, obviously, for us, it's going to adopt the innovation, and then from there, for whatever reason, they will end up discontinuing it. So, with this, it's also highly important to understand how discontinuance plays a major role in the overall adoption rate of innovations. Discontinuance plays a role in decreasing the number of overall rates. So, a lot of people often look at just the initial rate of adoption, but you also have to include the rate of discontinuance, of how many people are stepping away from using that innovation, to get a real look at the level of adoption for a certain innovation. Now, there is no certain rate or consistency that we find within innovations. It can change between innovation due to the attributes or traits that innovation may have. So when we're looking at these attributes of innovation, we see a negative correlation between the positive attributes and the rate of discontinuance. Basically, this is saying that if an innovation has traits that a adopter is wanting and they're needing, then they are less likely to discontinue it later on down the line because it has those traits that they're looking for and needing. Therefore, if they have this, then the rate of discontinuance is going to be lower, and therefore it'll bring up that level of adoption. And so overall, it's just important for innovators to understand that discontinuance will also play a role of a level of adoption. You cannot just be talking about your rate of adoption without also including the discontinuance rate. So moving on, there are two types of discontinuance. The first one is replacement discontinuance, and this is the decision to reject an idea in order to adopt a better idea that supersedes it. So basically, this is when an adopter, they go into an innovation, and later down the line, a new innovation comes out that's better, and meets the needs that adopter needs, so they then switch to it. This would be similar to how the way that we listen to music. It used to be on iPods or CDs, but now a lot of people have now switched to using streaming services. So instead of having to download or buy music, now a lot of times we just have a service that provides it to us. The second type of discontinuance is disenchantment discontinuance, and this is the decision to reject an idea as a result of dissatisfaction with its performance. So this is when an adopter, they adopt an innovation, and the adoption either doesn't meet their expectations, or something happens that causes them to have to stop using it. This is going to be similar to when a person may be taking a supplement to help them lose weight, and after months of taking it, they decide to stop it because it was not achieving the results that they were looking for. So, going next, I'm going to kind of test to see where y'all's thoughts are and see if you're able to understand where these case studies are. If they are either replacement discontinuance or disenchantment discontinuance. So the first case study is over organic farming. In 1954, data was gathered for over 1,000 farmers in Iowa about their adoption of agricultural innovations. At this time, Iowa University, as well as the Iowa Extension Services, they were pushing chemicals and the use of chemicals within agriculture really heavily. That was an innovation that they were really pushing out for the others to adopt. And within collecting this data, they found that one of the farmers refused to adopt this innovation because he thought that these chemicals were causing the earthworms and birds to die. And so therefore he did not want to adopt this practice. Well, fast forward in 1972, the Environmental Protection Agency, also known as the EPA, banned many of these chemicals, causing organic farming to become a superior innovation. So therefore, due to the banning of these chemicals, the organic farming became an innovation that was very successful, and that was superior compared to the use of chemicals. Not only were the organic farmers able to sell their products for a higher price because they were chemical free, but they were also able to save money in the fact that they were not spending money on those chemicals to spray on their crops. So, based on this switch from going to chemicals to now a whole bunch of people switching to the organic farming, what type of displacement are you thinking this is? I'll give you a moment to think. All right, y'all are exactly correct. It's disenchantment discontinuance, and that's because the EPA put a ban on them. Like, these farmers could no longer put chemicals on their crops, and if they did, it was under very strict ruling, and they had people looking over them and dictating when and how much that they were able to do. So moving on, our second case study is about the extension. And starting in the later part of the 20th century, the advancement of science and technology was being generated for the benefit of the community. This knowledge had been transferred to the end user, which was known as the transfer of technology, or TOT. This model basically was where these innovations and technologies and sciences were going from the innovator to the agricultural or to the extension agents, and then it would go down to the farmers and those who would actually adopt the innovations. Well, they found that this was not the most beneficial way to get the farmers to adopt those practices that they were working on. They found that using the participatory rule appraisal, or the PRA, was a lot more effective at getting them to adopt and include in these innovations. And so this practice is basically the complete opposite of the TOT, as it works from the bottom up. So it goes to those farmers, those people that would be adopting these innovations, and they get to put in their input and ask them what their needs are. And then from there, the extension agents get to take that up to those who may be creating the innovation so they can be creating a product that is truly needed by the farmers and the people who'd be adopting them. So, based on this, what do you think? Is it replacement or disenchantment? All right, y'all are exactly right. It's replacement, because we went from having that TOT model to being in that PRA model. So we were just switching as it was showing that it was more productive for extension agents and innovators to use that type of model instead. So going in a little bit more in depth, replacement, discontinuance, reasons why innovations are being replaced. A lot of it goes down to resources, as can they find a product or an innovation that's cheaper, that'll be more sustainable to their land and the resources that they have? Will it be more efficient and effective? Will it do a better job at what it needs to do than what they are currently offering? Now, adoption of a new idea almost always means discontinuing a previous idea. So I know through a lot of this presentation, there have been some very negative connotations to discontinuance. Now, that's not always the case. Obviously, being able to create these innovations and having these new ideas lead to betterment of our communities. So just because things are being discontinued isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just more of a negative if you're an innovator and someone else comes in with a different idea. So as an innovator, you kind of want to take this idea and thought process and be able to flip it to be more beneficial to you as an innovator. Now, moving on to discontinuance. The reasons why innovations are abandoned: because these adopters may be misusing the innovation. In that moment, it seems like it's being advantageous for them, but it may not end up exactly working well for them. Or it is not advantageous to the adopter. So they may be expecting that this innovation helps their crops yield increase a lot, and maybe they're just not seeing that, or that they're having to put a lot more money into this and they are not seeing that net growth at the very end. That, or there's negative side effects, or it's unsafe to use. So as we saw in the first case study, those chemicals were being banned. They could not use them anymore. So therefore, they had to discontinue that innovation. So there is a little bit more about that. So who is even discontinuing innovations? First of all, there's two categories. So there's that early adopter, and these tend to be more educated. They have a little bit more resources and money that they can use to invest into these innovations. And due to having that more education background, they are able to better generalize the findings that they have from test trials and being able to apply that on a full scale to make a better educated decision if they want to actually implement this innovation or not. While the late adopters, they tend to have less education and fewer resources, and therefore these late adopters often tend to be those that are discontinuing innovations more often. We find that those high discontinuers are characterized by less formal education, lower socioeconomic status, and they have less change agent contact with which is the opposite of those characteristics of innovators. So we find that when they don't have that background or the resources to be able to fund these innovations, they're most likely going to be those who discontinue the innovation. So now that we've talked about all about discontinuance, how do we mitigate this as an innovator? So preventing discontinuance cannot be fully done, as there will always be new, better ideas and better ways to serve the community, which, as I previously stated, that isn't always a negative situation. However, as an innovator, you can upgrade services on a continual basis. So looking at how you can make that innovation even better. Creating spaces for adopters to provide feedback. How can you create discussion forums or areas where your current adopters can give you suggestions on how to better serve them so your innovation will not be discontinued? Updating adopters of the latest offerings. So if you change something or add a certain opportunity or offering of you to your innovation, let them know so that they can use that and better their business. And then finally, continual research, better understanding, and just looking at how can you improve the innovations you already have. So connecting discontinuance to agriculture. Agricultural innovations play a vital role in producing food sustainability to reduce food insecurity. Farmers are willing to use innovations, however, they must line up with their values and needs. We saw this in the Green Revolution with Norman Borlaug. He went to Mexico with those ideas, the different ideas, and because they met the needs of those farmers, they were more willing to adapt that. So as an innovator, it's important to understand the needs of the people that you are trying to innovate an idea for. How can you best serve them and line that up with them to ensure that your innovation will not be discontinued after they adopt it a couple months later or a year later? So finally, connecting this to the extension service. As I said, I hope to become an extension agent, so this is a very special spot for me, as the extension service's goal is to provide a general or a wealth of knowledge that is at a level where the general public can understand, and then use this knowledge and research to improve their businesses and their farms or whatever else that they're needing to work on. In a research study that was done in Georgia over the extension services, they asked several farmers that have been using the extension system, what are some issues that they have found? And so, not to shock anybody, but funding and resources was obviously one of those. And then they also found that they loved the extension agents. However, they felt like from the statewide of things, they were not pushing them enough to find new innovation that could better help them improve their businesses. And then finally, they were not including the farmers' feedback and assessment. So there were several areas where they thought that if they would just include what their opinions or thoughts were, that they could better the extension and how they were serving them to the best of their abilities. Ultimately, they found that the growers' experience with extension could be improved to establish relationships with agents, meet their needs, and provide them with the advantage over other growers. So, as I was saying, I'd hate to think this, but with discontinuance and extension, if extension's not able to overcome these problems and work them out and become a service that continues helping people, it could possibly become discontinued. And it is an innovation that has helped so many people that it would be really sad to see this possibly discontinued. So it's important to look at how we can mitigate these issues and better serve the community to ensure that this doesn't happen. So here is my resources of where I got all this information from. And then thank you for listening. Is there any questions? Thank you so much, and y'all have a blessed day.